What's happening? Can't hear you.
Hello.
Now I can hear you.
Oh, okay. I just had the most fucked up morning ever. Well, in toxic relationship land, I think, of my life. Like even just talking about it and like I'm shook. I'm shaken. I think it was insane. Like absolutely horrible. I can't believe it got into such a point where it just got so toxic and so fucked up. Like, Nigel was supposed to come over this morning and we were supposed to take the truck back. And he came over, and before we went to bed, I said, can you get up at 9:30, come over here around 10, and then we can go, and I'll have breakfast and coffee, and I'll be in a good mood, and we can do it together. And I woke up around 10:30, and he said he was just going to drive over and kind of wake me up. And I guess he was waiting for my call, and I hadn't contacted him, so he ended up coming around 11. And then he enters the hallway and he doesn't even smile. He doesn't even say hello. He just stands there. He just glares at me. And I open the door and he gets in the house and he just stands there for a couple minutes and he just, no expression, no hi, no nothing. He just stands there and stares at me and glares at me. And so I said to him, just go to Nanaimo without me. And then it just escalated from that. And then me being like, I just feel so despised by every time I see you. And then he flipped out and then I flipped out, and just the series of events. Like I was cooking, wanting to cook, and I grabbed a can of beans from the cabinet and I looked at him and grabbed the beans and I was jabbed him in the face and threw them at him. And then he flipped out and started screaming. And then he grabbed his phone and walked out, stormed out of the hallway, grabbed his phone, and then smashed it on my front fucking door to bits. And then he just stormed out screaming at me and I locked it. And then he opens up the window from my room and says, can you pass me my SIM card? I didn't even know that he smashed his phone. I walked out and I see his phone smashed all over the door. So I walked out and I handed it to him and he chased me down the hallway and said, like, no, you can't run away. Like, get back here. In different words, but he chased me into the thing. And then he started screaming at me and I started screaming at him. And it just got in this huge fight and I was crying and he was yelling at me. And then I went and he left and he was like, fuck you. Like, you treat me like shit. And then I was like, yeah, I don't know, I said something, and then I chased back. I chased to the truck to get in because he was leaving to go to Nanaimo, and I was supposed to go with him. And he just put his foot on the gas pedal and said, I don't know who you are anymore. And then he drove off in the truck, and I chased after him down the street, screaming. And he just put his foot on the gas pedal and he left. It was so fucked up. I don't think I've ever experienced anything so toxic in a relationship. It reminds me of my upbringing. Like it reminds me of my mom having like a schizoaffective episode and like throwing everything down the stairs while my dad screamed at her and like beat my brother. Like I literally, like, it reminded me so much of just like this toxic like family dynamic where he was like screaming at me and I was screaming at him and I was crying and I was having a breakdown. He was just stomping his feet and throwing things and I'm chasing after him. The whole neighborhood had a little show, and then there's me like screaming on the street and like crying in my room, and he just drove off and he smashed his phone. I can't get a hold of him. He's going to my grandparents' house, and like it's just I've just never experienced it so bad. Like I've never chased a partner down the street barefoot while screaming at them outside of my apartment building while running as fast as I could after their truck while they put their foot on the gas pedal and said, I don't know who you are anymore. After they smashed their phone on my front door and I almost threw a can of fucking black beans at their face.
So this could be constituted as the train wreck.
This is like, there's no turning back from this. Like, it's over. It's fucked. I treat him like shit. I treat him like absolute shit. He has every right to be as mad as me as he is. But I'm not going to own up for it because I don't fucking care because I hate him. Like, there's one thing to love someone unconditionally and be like, I'm sorry. But I honestly, I'm at such a point where, like, I don't even care anymore to really own up accountable for how badly I've treated him, because I just don't even give a fuck anymore because I despise him. It's like everything, everything. Every time I try to fucking organize or plan anything with him, like the reason I was making lunch is because we were going to meet with Lindsay and I'll convoy up to Nanaimo an hour later, but I didn't even get a chance to tell him that because he just stand there and glared at me. And now I'm and I was supposed to go up to Fairy Creek with him and I was all packed up, and now I'm figuring out another ride to Fairy Creek, and it's just, and then he's like, oh, I drove all the way here to come get you this morning. And then I said to him, like, get off, it's a 20 fucking minute drive. Like, I'm like, and then I said to him, like, oh, look at you doing a 20-minute drive. And he's like, it doesn't matter how long the drive was. It's the fact that I came here. And I mean, honestly, at that point, like, what are you not supposed to? And then he says to me yesterday, he's like, oh, I know I'm only here to see you, but I'm gonna go stay at, a studio an hour out of town for you to get to, and just come over in the morning so then I can just drop the truck off and get what I need done. Like, the guy will literally drive around all night carpooling people from 7-Eleven, but will complain about driving 20 minutes to my house in the morning, me wanting to have lunch.
Do you know what I just got was you and him falling off a mountain, and as you're falling, getting hurt, you're shouting at each other.
So fucked up.
Yeah.
Like, when you're at a point with your partner where you're grabbing a can of black beans to smash them in the face, and they're running in and out of your apartment building screaming at you, you slamming the door and unslamming the door. I mean, everyone in the building hears that shit.
Yeah.
And then I was like, can you not? Like, he just stood by the front door and screamed at me. It's like, everyone can hear it. I'm like, can you just go in the living room? Can you yell at me somewhere else where not everyone in this building can hear you screaming at me? And then I also said to him, like, how am I supposed to respond? Like, I come from a family of a lot of verbal and abusive behavior. I'm going to be in complete freeze mode if he's going to talk to me like that and treat me like that. I'm not able to have an open discussion with him. I'm not able to show up. I just am complete freeze, and he just stands there and screams at me. And then I told him that, and he just started screaming more and smashing the phone, smashed the door. Like, and then he says, I don't know who you are anymore. And then, he spends the whole week guilting me about this boat on Cortez, and how he's got all this life savings to be there with me. And I'm just so done. I'm so done with feeling so guilty. And, I was trying so hard to just be this nice person and mend things with him so there's no resentments, and show up for him and make it so it's all okay, because I won't hold myself accountable for how shitty his experience is because of how I treated him. But to be fair, I was thinking yesterday on the bus, the week before he bought the boat on Cortez, I was having a chat with his friend who he bought the boat with. And I remember so clearly sitting with him and being like, do you guys actually want me to be a part of this project? Because I need verbal affirmation, and I feel like I'm not getting any verbal affirmation from Nigel that we're a team or we're doing this together, and it makes me feel like I'm not a part of it, and it makes me feel like I'm not a part of this team, because the one thing I'm looking for is my partner to tell me that that he wants me there. And then when Nigel goes to buy the boat, he asks me, sits there with a wad of cash and says, do you want to do this? And I said, I can't make any decisions right now. I'm feeling really indecisive, but regardless, I feel like it'll be a good opportunity for you. So take that as you will. And then I don't know what's going on, because he's like, I bought this boat for you and all this stuff. And then he's just losing it. And I just feel so guilty because of the boat, that I'm like trying to not make a fuss and not make him be mad at me about it. So I'm saying, I'll show up and I'll be there for you. It's going to work out and I love you. And I think I just need to accept the fact that he's going to fucking hate me for this. And that's okay. I can't keep, pacifying him and satiating him with these words to try to make it so he's not mad at me. Because he has every right to be mad at me. And I mean, if it gets to a point where you roll over in the morning and make eye contact with your partner first thing in the morning, and the thing that comes to your head is, I hate you. And then they're standing in the kitchen, you're making lunch, and you literally think it's okay to say, every time I'm around you, I start to fucking despise you more and more. Get out of my house.
It's pretty much a signal that things aren't going well, right?
It's like I try so hard to organize my life for him when he comes down. I try so hard to prioritize him. And it just felt like such a fucking knock in the face when, I cancel all my plans to go see him and help him move. And he stays up all night, messaging me at 4 p.m. And then I go to his house and he's just lying in bed having a panic attack and doesn't want to get out of bed and doesn't want to do anything. And then I spend all day trying to help him move, which he doesn't even really do. And then he goes back to his house and then I ask him, because he has a truck, he has a vehicle, it's full of gas, can you drive and pick me up at my friend's house because I was helping my friend move? And he said, yeah, it's going to be a while. And then an hour later, he goes, oh, I just, the guy that's moving in was at the Rainbow Gathering in Colombia. Oh, I have to do this. And like, I have to clean the fridge. And I'm like, okay, I'll just walk home in the middle of the night because you won't do this 20-minute drive to pick me up. And then he calls me after and he's like, I'm thinking about staying overnight here and like having a glass of wine, having some dinner with the roommates before I go. And I'm like, well, that sounds like an amazing opportunity. I feel like you should do that. I mean, if I live somewhere for a year, I think that would be great. And then it's just like, and then he calls me an hour later and he was like, oh, I only came here to spend time with you. And it's like, what the fuck kind of effort are you putting in then? Because I just feel like I'm being so taken for granted. Doesn't take long to maybe drive an hour there and back to pick someone up and then maybe have a glass of wine or have dinner with them. And then I told him that yesterday. And then he told me selfish and so that I was only looking at it from one side and that, he had a big day and he was moving and he was in this big transition and that I was just looking at it from what works for me and not what works for him and that I was just being selfish and only seeing things from one side. Maybe the longer you're in a relationship with someone, the less you care.
No, I mean, I think like from what you told me, it sounded like you guys broke up a while back and you're both trying to make it work, but you're both it just gets worse and worse.
Like when I left my debit card in David's car and I had a job interview, he was on the highway and he turned around and met me outside of my house and gave me my debit card and drove me to my job interview. That maybe that's someone with a very light schedule, but with Nigel, it's like he won't even drive a half an hour to come pick me up so I can help him with stuff that he needs to do that I will gladly do because I closed my schedule and all my plans to show up for him. It makes me feel like a bother. But that's the thing, right? Like I'm so used to being treated like shit or feeling like I'm being treated like shit because my needs aren't being met. And I'm looking at it from my side, and then I'm treating him like shit because I created all these resentments. And then he's seeing only me treating him like shit because I'm despising him at this point for all these little basic needs that I'm used to. Maybe he's not. And maybe he thinks it's a big deal. But for me, that's something I expect because that's something that I've been treated with my whole life. And hold on one second. I'm just going to let the cat out. Do, 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 do. Also, I mean, he helped me move a bed frame yesterday, and then he just left. And now I have this bed frame of his that I don't know how to put together. So I have a mattress on top of a mattress on top of a broken bed frame beside all of his furniture that he I think the most embarrassing part is probably all of my neighbors watching me barefoot, screaming and chasing a giant truck down the street.
I mean, do you want me to say anything, or I don't really feel it's probably in your best interest for me to say anything.
It's just kept. I am baffled by the series of events. I have to go look at my front door to see if there's any actual damage that happened from him smashing his entire phone on it into bits and pieces all over the hallway.
You're baffled. Like, remember back a while back, and I sort of said, well, there's this train wreck coming.
Yep.
And then each step along the way, it was the minor train wreck, or maybe the train was swerving a bit back and forth.
Well, it's just hard because Nigel thinks that I'm this selfish or mean, abusive, like bitch, terrible, like partner. No one wants to be seen like that. And so I'm just doing everything in my power to be like, I'm not that kind of person. And then he appears and exists, and then they all come out because I'm so mad.
Again, it's kind of like, let's say at the end of a relationship, or during a divorce, or during any type of breakup, or like, people treat each other horribly, right? Like, they used to be in love, they used to care for one another, but it's kind of like, at some point you have to sort of acknowledge which part in the process are you. And I guess to me, because I've been through a number of these, I don't know to the extent of that, but you kind of realize at the end, okay, this is ending, and you kind of, you're more, okay, it's ended, okay, like, you get it.
That's how I felt when he left and he said, I don't know who you are anymore. And I chased after him on the street. He didn't stop. And I walked around the block and I was sobbing, and there was all these families walking around. I went to Fisherman's Wharf, and there was all these families walking around with their kids, and some bougie Victoria thing. And I had like snot all down my arm, and I was like throwing it around, and it was like going in the air, and it was like lagging down my shirt, and like my whole face was puffed up, and like tears running down my eyes. I was screaming, and I got home, and I was like, oh, I realized that his phone was smashed, and I was like, I don't even want to contact you. Like, it was just so strong, and such a tower, such an explosion. But it got to a point where I sat down, I was like, it's done. Like, this isn't fixable. Like, he can go about his way and hate me, and I can go about my way and hate him. If it gets to a point in a relationship that you look at your partner and you think, every time I'm around you, I start to despise you and I hate you, what point is it? I'm just trying to self-convince myself that things are okay so I don't hurt him. But then when any little thing happens, I nitpick at him, and I'm hurt more and more and more.
Yeah, there's this, I guess, the balance point between, okay, thinking you can fix it, and thinking, okay, well, we're working on ourselves and this is what's going on, versus, no, we're in a freaking, we're heading towards a cliff, and we're both going to go over and push each other over.
I just didn't want to acknowledge that I had hurt him, and that I didn't want to acknowledge the fact that I was terrible. I didn't want to, I didn't want to acknowledge the fact that I was hurting him, and that it was destruction. And I don't want to acknowledge the fact that, it takes two, and that I had been playing a role. I think that was the biggest thing. I was like, well, if we stay together, we can fix it, and then I won't have hurt you, and you won't have like resentments against me, and you won't feel all this damage after, and things won't be so toxic. And when we spend time together, we really do get along, and like we have a lot of fun, and things are good when we spend time together. It's when things aren't good that there's terrible. And
yeah,
I've never had anything like that. I've never had anything like I dated this really like mentally unstable, abusive guy when I was like 14, and he would, if I went out and did other stuff, I'd come back to go see him, and he'd be smashing chairs outside of his apartment, or not outside of his apartment, about outside of his house on the porch. He would just throw things and smash them and like hit them with hammers, and he would scream, "Do you love me?" And he'd just break them apart while making eye contact with me and like smashing shit everywhere. But I never really, I never did that. Like, it's been a while. Like, kind of forgot about those things.
Mm.
And no one wants to acknowledge like the fact that you're being fucking terrible. It's like, no, you, no, you. And the worst thing too is Nigel's trying his best, but his best isn't good enough for me at this point.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you're going back in again now. Like I've watched this a few times where you kind of you reach the point of no return, then you kind of go, well, maybe I'll just try again, kind of thing. Like whether like when you got two people that are fighting, the first thing you do is you sort of put them in their corners, or you sort of get them away from each other, and you can't really like it just sounds like no matter what, both of you need some time apart just to kind of reestablish your own personal space, reestablish your own identity. And, to me, it's like a minimum of a month.
I think a year apart would be so good for us. Like I haven't spent a year without Nigel in 5 years. Like he's been like a big pillar in my life for the last 5 years. If he was apart from that pillar for a year, I don't know. I don't know what would happen, but I think something good would happen. It's gotten to a point where he's my emotional support. He's like my financial support. He's my this support. He's my friend. He's my partner. He's my this and this and this and that. I am so great at doing all those things on my own, but it's just gotten to a point where I'm like, well, I could Nigel's there. Like
Yeah. Yeah. And
I can't believe how fucking terrible it was. I'm literally blown away that it got to such a point, and it wasn't even me yelling. Like there was a point where I was like, please, put your voice down. Like, can you yell to me over here, not by the door, so everyone can hear? Like, can you please calm down for a second? I'm not in a mental state where I can do that. And it was just so bad.
I I remember a time where I was dealing with a situation that I'd never dealt with before. And again, that you realize the side of you that has like a mafia hitman inside you. You're just so pissed. You've had enough. And that's our deepest shadow, right? And it's usually there to stop bears or lions from eating us. So I mean, humans are pretty intense when we get pushed past that.
It's fucking nuts. It's fucking nuts. And not at my place. Like leave my house out of that. You're too good on the streets.
Well, and like nothing does it better than love, I mean, people
I
go
just
crazy.
can't believe how fucking brutal. Like I'm blown away. I am blown away. It's never been that bad before. It's never ever been that bad before.
Well, I mean, to me, it's like again, that the idea that trainer, like it's been coming for a while, and it's kind of like at some point you got to kind of jump off the train in a sense.
It's fucking terrible.
But I think it's like getting.
I feel like I'm having a panic attack when I think about it. Like I feel like I have PTSD.
Well,
Like I'm literally sitting here, I'm shaking, I'm crying, my nose is
no,
sweating.
you have to acknowledge that you're going through a very hard time, and
I was supposed to go to Fairy Creek today and get arrested. I don't think I can get arrested right now.
it's a perfect time to go to Fairy Creek because
Yeah, you're right.
yeah, it's a great time up there. Like I think an important thing is to like not let it shut you down into an emotional, like go out and walk, go out and breathe, go out and like do something to get rid of the pent up energy that's in you. And it doesn't have to be lie in bed for 3 days crying kind of thing. You can I mean it's
I'm
like,
getting a gym membership. I'm going on a cleanse.
well it's
I'm gonna read 15 million books. Gonna write a book. I'm gonna graduate from 5 schools. Gonna travel 10 countries. Like, just give it a week.
I mean, it just sounds to me that you're kind of in shock that it could have happened. You're in shock that you could have done what you did. You're in shock that he did what he did. It's shocking. You got shocked. But to me, it's life. Like, this is not, like, it's in these moments where you make decisions about sort of like how you're going to be and who you're going to be around and what you're going to accept, and what leads to this kind of thing. See, I better stop talking.
I can't believe he ignored me for 5 minutes and just stood there and glared at me because I wanted to make lunch.
Oh, because he thought he was picking you up and we're about
We
to
were
go?
gonna go immediately.
Said that, or he had said, I need a quick one, and you're just sitting there making your mayo. And then I mean, to me, when there's no slack, right? I mean, you guys you're an instant irritation. Everything that happens is something that's off, and it's just back and forth, worse and worse.
Well, with normal people, someone drops you off and they're like, "Oh, I'm busy, I'm moving." You're like, "Okay, that's fair. It's a big day for you. If you need a hand, let me know." With Nigel, it's like, you really gonna tell me for a fucking week that you're driving 6 hours to come see me? And now you're busy moving, even though I came over and devoted 2 days to help you move and you didn't do any of it. And now on your last day in town before you go to Cortez, you're just gonna go and have dinner with your roommate and drink wine? Like a normal person, I'm like, go drink wine with your roommate and have fun. I'm just like, I cancel my plans with you, but I can reschedule and everything's gonna be okay. Maybe I'll do something different. But with him, it's like, how fucking dare you?
I don't think you can quite reason with madness. Like, to me, when people get into their like it's just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth of sort of being hurt and hurting.
The thing is, like, he's not even back and forth with me. He's like, I'm here for you. I love you. It's gonna be okay. And I'm like, why'd you do that thing yesterday? And he was like, what thing? And I'm like, wake up. Fuck you. Like, he said to me yesterday, he said, what's gonna help my day so much better? It's gonna make everything so wonderful. I'm gonna drop you off at your friend's house and I'm just gonna go to Pandora and get a hoot. I said, fuck you. And so I left going like this. And I walked away to my friend's house, middle fingering him and saying, fuck you. And he middle fingered me and said, and then I walked across the street with my middle finger out, just glaring at him, like almost walking backwards. And then he went to Pandora and was like, no, Brooke's going to be mad at me if I do this. So he didn't do anything. And then I called him later that night when I was walking home because he couldn't spend 20 minutes to pick me up, even though he drove 6 hours to come see me. Now he's doing a 12-hour drive. And I'm walking home and I call him and I'm upset. And he was just like, why are you so upset? You told me that I could go do this and I checked in with you and all this stuff. I mean, I don't know. If someone says, hey, I want to do this thing, you can't be like, don't do that thing because I want to see you. Let them do their thing. I can't be mad, but like, why did you even ask? Like, say I'm doing this thing. I want to do it instead of like, oh, I really want to do this thing, but also like it'd be cool to see you, but then I'd have to drive, and you've been waiting 4 hours for me to pick you up, a 20-minute drive, so maybe I'll just stay here and have a glass of wine. Like I asked my roommate if he could stay here for a couple of days, and he just stays at a studio, wants to go up to Fairy Creek, and now wants to go up to Cortez. And then he's getting mad at me because we have no time together. I see him once a week. Last time I saw him for an hour, last time he was in town, and we got groceries together. And he's mad that I'm snuggling with another person. You're really gonna come see me once every 2 weeks? We hang out for an hour and get groceries? You gonna call that love? And he says we can't stay in town for another day because he has to go to Cortez and work on the boat. Because if he doesn't go to Cortez and work on the boat, someone else is going to work on the boat. And that makes him feel bad. But he just comes here because, you know, if he doesn't work on this boat, someone else is going to work on this boat. And then he'd feel bad.
Uh-huh.
I drove 12 hours to come see you for an hour, but I also had to move my house and move out, and you know, I put in my notice, and I had to clean things up, and I had to see my roommate, and I had to borrow this truck, and I had to do all these things, and I drove 12 hours to see you last time, but you know, we just got groceries. Like I just put in so much effort in this relationship and spending time with you that, you know, like I have no idea why you're so upset and like why you know, want to keep an open relationship and see other people, because I put so much effort in this, and I spent $15,000 on this boat for us that, you know, after I bought it, made you really uncomfortable and you had a meltdown because I wasn't appreciating you or valuing you or even telling you that I wanted you to be a part of this boat or this project or that I love you. But just so you know, I put all my life savings away for you. What the fuck? I've never experienced anything so half-assed. And then there's also me being like, I have a job interview. If you're going to drive 12 hours to come see me, just know that I have other things to do and that other things are important to me. And I'm not going to prioritize you this time because I have made plans and built a bunch of things in my life. And then he goes, oh. And then the one time I cancel everything, he's up all night. I'm hanging out with people in 7-Eleven. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I'm not communicating properly. I told him to stay at his roommate's house. I told him to stay and drink wine at the art studio. I think that's fair. I also asked him 4 hours before that if he could pick me up and do a 20-minute ride, which also took him 4 hours to do, which ended up with him staying there. Like, maybe I'm just not communicating with him properly. I mean, I did tell him today, hey, can you pick me up at 10 o'clock and I'll have breakfast and I'll have had coffee. And, you know, I didn't get out of bed till he got here. That's my problem. But also, I mean, if you're with someone for 4 years and they sleep in late and they don't know what the fuck they're doing ever, you come to terms and expect that, you know? Like, just expect the fact that I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And then it takes me a while to get out of bed. And I'm not going to have breakfast ready by 10 o'clock. I usually don't even get up by 10 o'clock. Like, who do you think I was?
Are you looking for meaning? You're looking for, what are you looking for?
I'm looking for absolutely nothing. I'm just trying to get more rage brewing so that I can actually like get out of bed and do what I need to do today.
Okay. Because you're giving me that bit of that stink eye and I was in your crossfire.
No, I'm just thinking about, I don't know. But then I mean also I've been a cosmic bitch. I've been absolutely terrible. I've never had a partner. Like I was walking into my building with him a couple months ago and I just looked him in the eyes and said, can you shut the fuck up? I never speak to people like that. I've never spoken to a partner like that. I've never had so much rage in my body that I think it's okay to ask someone to shut the fuck up outside of my house. But it's the middle of the night. You're walking into an apartment building. People have windows open. Do you really have to scream about stuff outside when you're walking in? Just be quiet. Just be a little bit more respectful. Other people live here. I have to be aware of that. And you know, everyone he's talked to about the situation we're in was like, dude, that fucking sucks. Like that sucks that this happened, that you're being treated like that. Like anyone on his side is like, dude, that fucking sucks. Like she's treating you terribly. Like that's horrible. And everyone on my side's like, kind of fucking hurt him. But I think it's so far gone. I can't even hold myself accountable for anything because I've learned to despise him and then just keep doing that. It's so far gone. I just have to accept the fact that I've done a really shitty thing. I've been really fucked up. And I've been terrible. I'm just, if I keep wallowing and like, oh, I'm sorry, I'll be better. No, I'm not gonna be better right now because I fucking hate him.
Yeah. Have you ever sort of, like, it sort of seems like you haven't been through a breakup before? Like, even though, I mean, you guys have broken up before, I think, but it just kind of seems like, again, because I guess I've seen it so many times that to me it's just kind of, okay, well, this is natural. This is what happens when two people end up hating each other and break up, and they're just, it doesn't matter what happens. You're past that point of return.
I've
Whatever comes back up keeps coming back up, right? So
never really allowed myself to get so close to another person that it has gotten so powerful at the end. I was mostly like, maybe see someone for a year or two and respectfully end things off because things aren't working, still keep as friends and move on with my life. But this has just been a whole different story. Like I could still, like, all of my ex-partners, I could be like, hey, how's it going? And just have a conversation with them. But with Nigel, it's just been so fear-based, I guess.
well, I mean, also, I mean, you've from 17 to 21, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty young. It's like after you've had another 4 or 5 relationships, it kind of, you sort of recognize the signs, I guess, and you sort of break it off before it gets as bad as it is. It's like if both people are continually hurting each other, I mean, it just doesn't make much sense to me to spend time with one another. And you have to inevitably go through that, no, we're broken up and that's what it is and that's it. And that's what you haven't been able to do. You're always trying to make it work.
Yeah, even today, after Nigel left, when I was crying on the street, I called my grandma and I said, when Nigel arrives to your house to drop off the truck, can you get him to call me? And she said, wow, you just won't even let that guy go?
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit of a madness, right? Thinking that you can fix something that ain't fixable.
Yeah. It's like, I feel like I'm constantly stabbing myself. And then, I think in relationships, maybe this sounds strange. I think in relationships, I think people should just stab each other. Because I would much rather have physical pain that my skin can scab and heal over than emotional trauma that's gonna linger on for years. I'd be totally okay with just getting like stabbed.
Mm.
Even when Nigel left today, I was like, well, maybe I'll go, burn my hand on the burner stove or jump in front of a moving car. And I was like, what? What's that? Where's that come from, dumbass?
I mean, I remember when you had enough distance and you were kind of on your own, and then you were just progressively getting happier and happier.
But I was also still in contact with Nigel. He was my emotional support. He didn't know that I was seeing other people and what was going on, but I was, talking to him every 2 or 3 day and having like an hour-long phone call and like still having him a part of my life. Like we weren't seeing each other at that time and we weren't being romantic, but we were definitely like showing up for each other constantly whenever the other person needed it and still keeping those bonds strong. So I was happy because I could do whatever I wanted and Nigel didn't know, but I could still have him there.
Right. Well, I guess things are going to be a bit different now, right?
Yeah, I gotta recover. I gotta recover from this madness. I gotta eat some food. I haven't eaten any food all day. I had I just can't believe it. I can't believe I fell off the cliff. Anyways, I'm gonna go. Lindsay's gonna pick me up at 4 and we're gonna go to Fairy Tree. So I should get ready.
Okie dokie.
Thanks for being there. Thanks for the call.
It'll get better. It'll get better.
Yeah.